Good evening to all. Welcome. Today we all have Mr. Pavan Shetty with us, who has been a part of the luxurious brands like Porsche, Ford, Lamborghini, just for instances, and he's going to be joining us to share his journey. Welcome, Mr. Shetty. Thank you so much for joining us and making time for our students. Over to you.
First of all, a big thanks to you for really being so persuasive. As you know, I mean, it's very difficult to. Uh, I love to talk to students, but it's really not possible during your regular routine to really find time. But thanks to you, I could also get a haircut done so that I could be more presentable with this wonderful team out here. And I hope you guys have something to take away from today's topic. So usually the way I do it is I hate to talk alone, and I really like a two-way interaction. And it would be really futile if at the end of 1 hour, which I think I have, you don't get anything that you want. Yeah. So let's have a chat. Chat is two ways. So if you don't get anything, is there anything specific that you want to ask? Feel free to cut me and ask. Yeah. And if there is anything specific that you want, I'll earmark 15-20 minutes at the end so that you have any questions about your careers or anything about luxury or anything in general that you want to ask, you can go ahead and ask. Okay. So, is there any specific thing that you want to talk about or learn that I might not have covered? I'll just tell you what I'm going to do, and then you guys may tell me if there's anything special that you want covered. Okay. First of all, I'm going to talk about my career journey. How I landed into luxury, how did I start, uh, what was some of the learnings. Then I'll talk about luxury in general, the real story behind luxury. I mean, what you see from front and what works behind is very, very different. Then I would really talk about luxury in automotive and how is it different from luxury in general. And I shared two case studies with you, which is basically my case studies and how I achieved some of the obstacles that I saw, and finally the Q&A. Is there anything specific other than this that you would like me to cover? Anyone? Yes, no, maybe?
No, sir.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're speaking on behalf of everyone. Okay, good. So, and I'm again telling you, please talk to me. I get bored if I have to talk alone, okay? And then you won't get the best of me. I just talk and then go away. So please talk, ask me questions, share your inputs, share anything that you want to share, and let's have a good discussion. So, I did my master's I'm a commerce graduate. I did my master's from Sydney, and like most of you, I'm sure you have a dream company. Can you all put your videos on, please? I feel like I'm talking to myself. That's great. Yeah. So, when I was doing my MBA, so my dream company was Unilever, and I was so desperate about getting into Unilever that on the day of the interview, I couldn't speak anything in the group discussion, and it was a complete flop. So I was very, very dejected, very, very demotivated. And next day, I went back and I thought, whichever company comes first the next day, I will give it my best shot. And the next day on the campus was Tata Motors. And I really went with a vengeance and I cracked it. Yeah. So, one of the lessons that one can derive out of this is life doesn't give you every time what you want. So try and make the second best as your give your best to the second best, and that's what I did with Tata Motors. So being a commerce graduate, not an engineering background, I was put to the commercial vehicle business. As you know, it's one of the most complex businesses, selling trucks in a market like Bombay, especially when you're a commerce graduate, is not easy. But I had the fun of my time. I learned business there. I used to visit customers. So in any business that you go or do when you start off, make sure that you meet a lot of customers. the business is really taught at the customer's end. It is not taught in colleges or sitting in offices. That's not where you learn business. The business is learned in the customer. The customer tells you what he wants, what his real needs are, and that's when you provide the right product. Yeah. So after Tata Motors, I wanted to get into cars. I'm really passionate about cars in general, and I happened to have an opportunity in Ford. So Ford was wonderful. I handled the west part of India, and Gujarat was a market which was very difficult for Ford then, and I was able to turn it around, and Gujarat became the biggest market by the time I left. Then, for some personal reasons, I wanted to be in Mumbai, and I was invited for an interview in Audi. Yeah, and when I went there, what was offered to me was not what I liked. I really thought it was not matching my experience, so I refused it. So one of the lessons that I shared here with you is it's okay to say no, however desperate you are. Yeah, you don't have to really compromise because once you get in, the dissatisfaction from the job will really kill you. So it's okay to wait and do what you like, then get into the first thing that comes in your face and accept it. So, as luck would have it, and I really believe in destiny, uh, when I was giving the Audi interview, somebody picked me up for Lamborghini, and that's how accidentally I was picked up for Lamborghini. I never applied for Lamborghini, and there I was working for Lamborghini. So Lamborghini was just starting off in India. It was a great opportunity to set up the business. Uh, I have a bit of business bent of mine, and I really liked it because you get to set up business in somebody else's money, so it's even more better. So I set up the business, uh, did some mistakes, learned a lot, and at the end of 3.5 years, I was offered Porsche. Yeah, Porsche was a 5 year stint, a wonderful experience. Uh, Crazy market, automobile market in India is really, really crazy. And on top of that, luxury business is very complex. More so because a lot of external factors affect the business. Yeah, so that's been my journey so far. Uh, and then last year I decided to take a sabbatical after 16, 17 years of work, and here I am doing what I really like. Um, so, so that's been my snapshot on career. Any questions so far? Anything that you want to ask me? Feel free to ask me anything that you want.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
So I wanted to know when you was like
Can
choosing,
you
you
introduce
was,
yourself? Who's this, Abid?
yeah, sir, Abid
Yeah.
here. I wanted to know first you went to a Lamborghini, what position you are at Lamborghini
So
when you got.
I was heading the brand. Yeah. So it's a really small business, Abid. And so basically, when you head the brand, you end up doing everything. Yeah, setting up dealers, setting up processes. You own the P&L.
Okay.
So I did everything. I mean, you call it managing director, you call head of the brand. I mean, I headed that business.
That was the starting time, right?
Yes, that was 2012.
So that-
Any other question from anyone?
I think you can move ahead.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So let's now start. Let's make it slightly more interactive. So let's talk about luxury in general. Yeah, um, I would say that luxury in general is very complex. Yeah, and it's even more difficult in India. Can somebody tell me why and what do you think of my statement?
You can start raising your hands and then start answering, guys.
Might be because of mindset, because we Indians have a different mindset in every different reason.
Okay.
And I believe that India is still developing, so needs comes before luxury. That's why it's still lagging in the sector of luxury.
So you guys are basically saying the market is small.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What else? So in business, there are two factors.
I think,
Let me
sorry.
break down the question. I'm sorry. One,
I think there needs to be a proper education about the industry more, because although we have a lot of a big set of customers that can afford luxury but don't know about it, like what are luxury brands, what are luxury products, and what's the story behind it, all that.
so you're saying luxury is not marketed well in India.
No, I'm not saying it's not marketed well. I'm saying people, most of the crowd is not like properly educated about luxury and luxury brands.
Awareness is missing from the
So
customer.
I would say in maybe in the tier 2, 3 cities where people, although they have the money to afford it, but then they don't know where to invest it. So they would like maybe invest in in properties and stuff like that, and gold. I mean, they have that kind of money, but they don't have the taste because they don't have that kind of knowledge for it.
So let me break down my question. Okay. So typically for any business, two things are very, very critical. One is the cost side and one is the revenue side. Correct? This define any business. Yeah, cost and revenue. And the difference decides you have a profit, you have a loss. So let me be more specific. Why is it complex from a cost side? And I'm saying when you are running a business or you are associated with a brand, what is your complexity? Forget the customer side. What is your complexity?
You have to make revenue.
How? As in, what is the complexity in that? Of course, you have to make revenue for any business. What is the complexity there?
How to reach the target customer?
That's from the customer side. I'm saying from the development side. Okay, so let me give you some hints. Okay, so if you study luxury properly, or say for example Rolex, yeah, or for example Louis Vuitton. So Louis Vuitton has models. They'll have minor changes in some of the models, and every 4 or 5 years they'll come with a major change. For example, even Rolex. Yeah, for example, take maybe a Daytona. Yeah, it's a model of Rolex. It really has high value, and the gray market price will be 3x the ex-showroom price. That's how crazy it is. Now, you will see a new Daytona coming not before every 4 or 5 years. Yeah, and even when the model comes, it is an evolution. When I say an evolution, it means that there are some how do I say, minor changes to the product. You don't see a major revolutionary change. Why do you think this happens? Why does luxury have a bigger cycle uh, than, for example, if you see an Esbeda bag? Yeah, I mean, women have used Esbeda bag, right? You have a new model coming maybe every 6 months, 9 months. But when it comes to LV or a Gucci, you'll have a new bag coming maybe 2 years or 2.5 years, maybe 18 months. Why is the timing different?
Because if it's the product is not exclusive, then it might be just like any other product.
The real reason is the developmental cost. Yeah. So the developmental cost for a luxury product is very high. The time taken to develop a luxury product is very, very high, because you end up taking good quality samples, designs, you go through customer clinics, a product has to be exclusive, so on and so forth. Just to give an example, for example, Lamborghini has a new model coming maybe once in 6 years. And in between 18 months, 2 years, you have minor changes. How do I say? A facelift, but you will not have a new model altogether, because it costs millions of dollars to develop the engineering cost. But at the same time, you look at a Hyundai or a Maruti, they come with a new car every 12 months, 18 months. Yeah. So what is different with luxury? What really happens is, since you're selling, the number of sales is very few, you don't recover the margins for you to develop a product every 18 months or 2 years. Yeah. So that's why the product life cycle of a luxury product is slightly longer than a mass product. This is on the production side. What else is complex from the production side? Why is it more complex?
So it requires a high level of skill and knowledge and craftsmanship.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is absolutely true. It's a very specialized job, so you need somebody who really knows the intricacies of the product, and they are not cheap; they're expensive. Yeah, so you have high material cost, high development cost, high people cost. Yeah, and then again, the marketing cost is very, very high. So you are sitting on a high cost structure, and there's a high risk, because if the economy doesn't go with you, then you're looking at huge losses. Yeah, and that's why luxury is a very tricky business. Now let's come to the customer side. What is the problem with the customer side? I know that you guys said there is no customer, the customer base is less, but my question is, at what level should the sales happen? Because if you have a problem of too many, then you're no longer luxury. Correct? For example, let me give you an example of Rolex. Now, there's some of the models of Rolex you have to wait for 5 years, even in India. Yeah, 5 years, 7 years, they don't even take bookings. Versus some of the models of, say, maybe an LV, you get it off the shelf. Correct? So, what do you think is the right level of customer penetration? A right level of customer penetration is the one where you have a sufficient order bank to fulfill your future orders. What do I really mean by that? Is, see, luxury is very individualistic. Okay, I would never want my friend, my neighbor to have the same thing that I have, and that's a customer psychology in luxury. Yeah, it is very unique. It is not mass. So when you want something unique, you need to custom order it, and this takes time. Yeah. So when you sit on an order bank, which is somebody's already given you an advance, you have customers' money sitting with you, and then you order and deliver. That means your working capital is less. You don't need a lot of money to churn the business. Yeah. On the other hand, if you are sitting on too much of stock, then you're paying high interest. The customer, Indian customer at least, doesn't like what is available in abundance. He likes to wait. He likes one which others can't get. So you really need to play with this psychology of a customer. Yeah. So while I completely agree, the awareness is less, and it's absolutely true. As Indians, we are more into savings and buying more traditional um, uh, instruments like a house or gold, and we don't want to spend really money on luxury things because we don't see value in that, and that's a big problem. I completely agree, and that's why India contributes to only 1% of global luxury in terms of numbers, and that's a big loss. Any comments so far on what I've said? Janil Mehta, do you want to say anything? What is your opinion?
So, while you asked the question, like, what are the problems that the luxury brand face, I was actually going to say the making of the product, because it takes so. I think, yeah, that was a great insight into it. And secondly, when you talked about the customer side of it, like the Indian psychology, that they don't want the same product which everyone has, right? Like I wouldn't mind waiting for a product for 5 years than having the same product which someone else already has. And on the other side, about the investment ideologies, like they wouldn't spend so much money for a luxury product, because it's all materialistic. And like, as Indians, we are more into savings, not spending on material things. So yeah, that is some good insight.
Okay, great. So, so I think this is more or less about luxury in general. Now, let me take you to automobile. Yeah, in my opinion, automobile luxury is one of the most unwanted luxury, I would say. Yeah? Why do I call it unwanted? Because you have substitutes to that luxury. Nobody needs a sports car in India. The roads are not there. The infrastructure is not there. You can't really enjoy the car. So how do you really sell a sports car in India? Yeah? So does anybody know the mathematical equation of luxury sale? Mathematical expression of luxury sale. There are two levers to luxury sale. What are those? What are the two things that one should have to buy a luxury product?
Money, of course.
From a customer's point of view,
So money is capability. Second,
And trust, maybe trust
the
on the
will,
brand.
trust. What else?
will
What
to
makes
buy,
you come to the store?
willingness to
The
buy,
want,
The
interest.
desire.
The desire.
Yeah,
Yeah?
the interest.
The mathematical expression of a sale, luxury sale, is desire into capability. Now, capability is something that you figure out when you meet a customer. But the lever which is in your hand that makes a customer take an irrational product is the desire. And desire is a combination of a lot of things, like how you present your product, how's your display, how have you marketed the brand, what's the brand perception globally, how do you make the transaction, what are the comfort you give, and that's what is really complex. Yeah? So just to give you some insights, an Indian customer, generally a customer, when it comes to luxury, he will not pay the world for it. There is always a limit in your mind for a frivolous expense. For example, suppose I buy a Rolex, I pay say 8 lakhs. Tomorrow, if the same watch is charged for 15 lakhs, I might not buy it. Though I might be able to afford it, but I'll not buy it. Yeah, because I don't see that value worth 15 lakhs in that watch. Now, but if Rolex still wants to pitch that watch to me, what should they do?
Give the customer an offer.
No, never.
Give the
Luxury and offer never go together.
customer the benefits or the value it will provide them after buying the product, like how it associates with their style or class.
Absolutely. So
Especially the experience or the timelessness thing that they provide to the customer.
perfectly. So what you're really doing is you're upping the emotional quotient. And when it comes to emotion, if you really understand, people pay anything for emotion. For example, we are ready to pay anything for a parent's health. Yeah, people who have children are ready to pay anything for their child's health. Yeah, so there are things when emotion comes, rational goes out of window. Correct. And when you know that your product is, for example, an Hermes belt. Yeah, I mean a belt costs like 85, 90,000. There might be actually no value to it there at the end of the day. You just see that H logo and that's about it. But why would somebody buy it? Because it associates with something. It associates with luxury. It basically, as you enter maybe a crowd, it tells that this guy has a taste and he can afford it. It makes 100 statements. And without talking, I want to make that statement. So I buy that belt. Yeah. Why would somebody buy a Lamborghini? Because it talks about an attitude. I mean, when I look at a Lamborghini in Mumbai, on hindsight, I find it really funny because there are no roads to drive in Mumbai. But I'm glad they bought what they bought. Yeah, I mean, otherwise I would be a big disaster. So auto gets to next level of difficulty simply because you charging people 4 crores, 5 crores for a car which is impractical, which might not cross a speed breaker, which you might buy maybe drive once in 15 days. But you have still people going crazy about the car. You know? So this becomes a big challenge. And as the money gets more expensive, or the moment the emotional involvement with the product goes more intense, it becomes more complicated, because when you're handling a customer who's so wealthy and so powerful, and and the problem on the other side is most people who work in luxury do not come from that background. Yeah, they don't come from a super wealthy background. If they were super wealthy, they would not be working in a luxury brand. Yeah, I mean, they would be buying luxury. I'm not saying that no rich people are employed, but typically, and that's an issue of mindset then, because uh, I've seen when we used to design cars. Yeah, sports cars, there is next level of individualization. You can individualize a stitch, you can put your maybe Instagram handle, you can choose the color of the seat, you can choose the kind of leather, you can choose your paint, you can do all sorts of things. Imagine if I were to design a car for a customer and the customer is going to pay 4 crores, how sure I have to be in terms of what do I make for him. You get it? And if I'm not exposed to that kind of life or that kind of customer, it will be impossible for me to do a car which he will really say, yeah, I would have done something similar, if not exact. And then he's ready to pay. Yeah. So this is the most critical part, is to really, really understand your customer. Now, some of the case studies you should try and visit the Emporium Mall in Delhi sometimes. And the kind of hard work these guys do. For example, Versace, whenever they have a new collection, they go to the customer's house. And Delhi guys will take pride in saying Versace comes home. Yeah. So every customer in India is different. East behaves differently, West behaves differently, South behaves differently, and Delhi North behaves very differently. If you go to South, it will be difficult to figure out who's a customer and who's his driver, because everybody is wearing a lungi usually. Yeah. And they're so cultured and so understated that the only thing they demand is respect. And they would not haggle with you. They would pay whatever you want. And they're one of the most classiest customers I've seen, at least. Yeah. Mumbai is very different, very practical. They might afford a big car, but they will buy what they really want. So West, as in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Pune, is a little like that. And East is also moves towards a bit like North. So India is a perfect example of how do I say, complicated luxury market. And when you guys go start your career, it's really important that you understand these nuances and don't just go stand there trying to sell what you have. It doesn't Life doesn't work that way. Yeah? And so this is automobile luxury. Now, why is it really complex in India? Yeah, because it's not a secret that most of luxury, I mean, you don't have any luxury manufactured in India. Everything is imported. Yeah? So what is the rate of dollar today?
71.
24. It went up 2 days back. Yeah, I trade 73, 74. What was it a year back?
71. I think.
What was it 5 years back?
65.
69.
60.
How do you really plan your business? Because every time dollar goes up, you will have to jack your prices up. Yeah? And sometimes the dollar crashes, sometimes it goes up. So your customers would expect you to take losses or not pass on the price increase when the dollar goes up, but they would want to take the benefit of a dollar crash. I mean, it usually works against you. Now, suppose a new government comes and they say, guys, we are very socialistic. Let's increase the duty, make it twice overnight. Yeah. So now do you start understanding the complex? I mean, it's really a complex business. I used to be up doing nothing on February 28th simply to hear the budget, because I used to hear what are they doing to duties this year. Yeah. And this complexity will stay in India as long as we're a developing nation, and rightly so. Yeah. This is not a country which will ever promote luxury for the longest time. It will be a very small business, but it will be a very exciting business. But if you go to places like Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, US is the cheapest in the world in terms of luxury, or partly say Europe. So Spain is really cheap in Europe when it comes to luxury because of the duty structure. So you have stability in these countries. So gradually you'll see the wealth of people increasing. Yeah, I mean, car is no longer a luxury. Everybody has a car. Most people in India have a car, correct? So the quality of life is generally increasing. But when it comes to luxury, the penetration is not so high because our country doesn't really promote luxury, and it will not for a very long time. So I want you to be aware of the limitations that you enter. Some of you might start your own business, some of you might start to work, but you should know what you're getting into. Yeah. So this is one of the complexity. Second complexity. Now, since the customers are not aware, you should also be aware that you will not find people to work for you who are well aware of luxury. Rightly so, because luxury is not so well spread, which means there is a huge dearth of talent. When we used to have our dealerships, we had people coming from the mass brands, and it used to be very difficult to really train them the luxury way. So this is a big challenge that we'll face, correct? And the other part is, how do you really keep these customers engaged? Because there is only a small lot of customers who are there, and every brand is fighting for their share of wallet. You understand this concept of share of wallet, right? SOV. Yeah. So everybody's fighting for the same group of customers. For example, if you look at Lamborghini, the repurchase would be at least 40 to 45%, which means the same customer is buying every second year, or every third year the car, or he's upgrading. So the pie is not increasing. So it becomes so important to take care of every single customer in luxury and their demands. I'll just give you an example of what I've done. I don't think it has ever happened in India. There's one customer, I would not name him, but a very powerful guy. Uh, he is one of the few guys who buys a car in India and takes it abroad to drive. So this was a very unique customer who bought a car in India, but drove it in US, and from US he took it to UK. Yeah, and so he had a matte paint. That paint of the car costed something like 18 lakhs, just the paint. Yeah, so the matte grade of that paint was 12, which means it is not glossy and it is matte. Yeah, black matte. I mean, it's really good looking car. So when he gave it to London, there was some scratches, so he gave it to polish. Lamborghini UK polished it so hard that the grade from 12 went to 30 and it started looking glossy. It was no longer matte. And I think they had some argument with him and he called me from there and saying, Pavan, they're being racist. This was a very dangerous statement for Lamborghini and I was very scared. I said, this is going to blow up. So I called my office in Italy. At our cost, we moved the car back to the factory, repainted the whole car, shipped it back to London. Yeah, entire operation cost me 75 lakhs. So this is the extent to which you go all out, and this never happens. If you have your car, if you go and tell the workshop that I want it painted in the factory, he will laugh at you. Yeah, it's like the child going back to the womb. It never happens, right? So this is something we've done. We used to go to this level of extent to make sure that the customer is happy. And he still is in touch and he swears by Lamborghini and he bought so many cars after that and so on and so forth. So be ready to go the extra mile when it comes to a luxury customer. If something goes wrong, usually it's no questions asked, you get things replaced. Yeah, and this is how luxury behaves. So that's why the cost is really high. Then, okay. Then as simple as how do you really give a test drive? Yeah? The team at the dealership used to be ready almost 24/7. Some of the test drives, as you rightly expect, started at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning because there's no traffic. There are VIPs who don't want to be seen in the car. It would be around midnight. The guy would come after a party and he would just take a drive. And so all sorts of things happen and the teams are always ready. I mean, it really takes a lot to be a part of the luxury team. Then some of the events, yeah. The events we threw had to be something. Imagine a guy who's worth, say, 100 crores. He must be getting invitation every second day for a party or a launch or you know, how do you get his attention? How do you make sure that he comes to your event? What do you really do? So which means the event has to be at a scale where it interests him. What usually interests them is not the kind of food or alcohol that you serve. Yeah, they're more interested in what do they learn and who are they going to meet. So you need to create a networking place where like-minded people come, they exchange visiting cards, they'll have maybe some laughs, talk about the cars, and in the bargain you end up selling cars. Yeah, so this is typically how it works. And then you do things which money can't buy. For example, so this money can't buy experience takes you a really long way because what money can buy, anybody can do. I'll give you what money can't buy. For example, we used to take customers to snow-clad areas and make them drive cars on ice. This is typically an experience that money can't buy. Or create an entire experience on a racetrack and give them a training session, or give them an experience of 8-10 cars at the same go, or create an off-road track and let them experience the Porsches. So we've done all sorts of things to make sure that the customers are so glued to what we call money can't buy experience, and that's when they really value. And when I told you the emotion emotional quotient has to go up, it goes up like this. It's not by throwing ads on his face or doing that, what do you call these days, digital marketing and throwing YouTube ads when he's watching something. Yeah, of course they work, but they work for awareness, but they will not create interest. Yeah, interest creation is a very difficult task and it only comes by touch and feel. How do I touch them emotionally? How do I engage them? How do I engage the family? I mean, to the extent where, unfortunately, I mean, I think Porsches are bought in India by, they're driven by around 22% people, but they're bought by only 7% women. Yeah. So again, I'm repeating, Porsches in India are driven by close to 22-23% women. I mean, the father would own it, the company would own it, the husband would own it, but driven by 22-23% people, owned by 7% women. But you know, of the 93% men who bought, how many times the women was the decision maker? Almost
All the time.
50% of the time. Yeah? So it becomes even more difficult because if he has to buy a sports car, I'm sure he has to convince his family because they will be worried about his life and what he would do after sports car. So then you have to engage his family to make sure that the lady feels nice. She will look good amongst her group of friends, and how does the car fit in her lifestyle? So it's really a complex buying process, very intense. Yeah, it's not like somebody comes, you show the product, and he gives a check and goes. It does never works like this. It's a very complex process. For example, every time I bought something, I would research for 6 months. I would make sure that I get the best deal somewhere or something which is very exclusive. I look all around the world, call every store in the world. So because of the access to information now, you would expect that your customers will know almost equal to you or sometimes more than you. Yeah. So it is very important to be honest with customers. If there is a mistake, please be the first one to admit it. Trust is the single most weapon which will never go out of fashion. So make it an habit. You might lie once, yeah, but the day you're caught, you will never have a second chance. So please be honest with your customers. Um, and then the most important part is managing their ego. Yeah, I've had all sorts of requests. So again, not naming someone, this person is really powerful and is a kin to a minister somewhere. The person told me that the person wanted a car and I was only getting one car in the country. And the person said, no, I want this car. And I said, no, I can't give you because it is pre-sold. The person said, okay, I'm okay to you not giving me, but you should also not give it to my friend who was actually getting the car. So you get these kind of requests that if you don't give me, you should not even give it to that person. And you're really managing big egos when you're a business of luxury. Yeah. So you have to be really smart on how do you really deal with people, how do you maintain relationships, because if you really piss them off, then they would vent out on social media about how bad your brand is and how bad things you do, and all those things happen. So you have to be very careful about how you deal with people. So I think this is more or less about auto luxury. Yeah. So auto in India is even more difficult because one side I missed is the dealerships. Yeah, the investment in dealerships is very high, and because the number of dealerships are low, you import the entire material from abroad. You should know this commercial sides. Okay, luxury, mass makes no difference. At the end of the day, it boils down to money. The business has to be profitable. You need to develop that mindset of making money. Yeah, just because you guys will do luxury doesn't make you any different from the guy who's not going to do luxury. As if he makes more money than you do, then there is a problem with your business model. Okay, so you need to be very well aware of the commercial aspects of any business that you get into. So, for example, in say Lamborghini and Porsche or any luxury brand, for example, Mercedes, BMW, Audi, you name a brand, the exit cost or the entry cost is very high because everything is imported. The dealership, if you see the touch and feel of the dealership, it is very premium, and the sales cost is so high that typically most dealers don't make money in sales. So usually the money comes in after sales. But in luxury, it's slightly different. The money has to come from sales because the volume in the market is low, so after sales revenue is not so strong. Did you guys understand what I said? There are two types of revenue when you sell a product. Yeah, suppose you sell a watch. The watch will come for a servicing once in 4 years, 5 years, correct? So that's revenue. That's an after sales revenue. So you get a revenue when you sell a product, you get a revenue once you say market it. Suppose you sell a bag and the bag comes for leather repair after 6, 7 years for bad maintenance. So that's a revenue channel for you. So typically the cost of infrastructure is so high, the salaries are so high, the rent is so high, the fit out is so high that your break-even point becomes quite high. Do you guys understand break-even point? What is break-even point?
Where the cost is just met.
Equilibrium condition.
Yeah, where the cost is just met the production.
Yeah, typically the fixed cost is met. Yeah, typically don't involve variable cost in that. So a business should be built where you have minimal fixed cost, so that you are very agile, you are very adaptable. If the business environment changes, you're able to shift your business model. The higher the fixed cost, the more also if the business doesn't work well, the higher is the exit cost, and you are sunk in that business. So luxury is a typical business like that. So it is very, very tricky on how do you really do this business. You have to be very, very careful how you set up that business. That's more or less about it. Any questions now about this? So, oh shit, we only 15 minutes left. Okay.
As you told about the dealership thing, so it's the dealer who pays for the logistics and the stuff, or it's the company who pays for it?
Which logistics?
For the import and
no,
for the import of any.
Depends. Okay, there are two models in India. Okay, for example, give an example of say McLaren, Bentley, Aston Martin. Yeah. So the dealer also plays the role of importer, where he imports, he pays for the logistics, and he makes his margin. Now there are brands like say Maserati or Lamborghini, or say Porsche. So since they have local offices, the office would procure a car and it would come like maybe a Maruti or Tata. It will be delivered right to your showroom. You are not involved in clearing it, transporting it. You don't do any of those. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Aman, Vijan. So Aman was a star intern in Porsche. We really had a lot of fun.
3 years, sir. 3 years.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
Yes. When you mentioned that the customer had to repaint his Lamborghini from the womb of the company, so it costed around 75 lakhs. So who pays that? The company or your dealership?
See, typically, let me give an example. In this case, the company, because I was also feeling bad for the customer because he was hip down, he was paralyzed. Okay, and he was really passionate about the brand. So when somebody is so emotional about the brand, you also deal with it emotionally. You don't think about money all the time. Yeah. But there was a customer once, okay, not naming anyone. So what he would do every year before rain, since he didn't have a parking, he had a 10-year-old 911, he'll park it in the workshop, Porsche workshop. And for 4 months, he'd abscond. At the end of rains, he would come and say, now this is broken in my car, you guys broke it. And you guys need to pay for it. And the second year, I really lost it. And he would then call my office and try to reach out to me, and my assistant would say, I'm not there, not there. But he really was calling like 5 times a day, finally decided to talk to him. And I asked him, what's his problem? And I already knew what the case was. So he said, this is what your guys have done. It's a 10-year-old car. It's a beautiful car. There's nothing wrong with it. And you guys have broken it and the cost is 1 lakh. I said, I will not pay. I said, because you've taken 4 months. It was not supposed to be there. And I said, there's no evidence that the team broke. Then he said, okay, then I'll take you to court. I said, okay, I'll see you in court. So the customer was really shocked when I said this. Yeah, I mean, my intention was not to take him to court. But it is also important for people to know that you can't be bullied. Yeah. So I told him in the end that if you think the court can give you justice, I'm fine with that. I said, as long as you're happy. He said, no, I don't want to go to court. I said, then what do you want to do? He said, I want the issue resolved. I said, I'll pay 30%. He said, okay, and he hung up. So I paid 30%, and the customer paid 70%, and my 30% was shared with the dealer, 15% me, 15% me. So you can work. There is no one rule which deals with the situation. It depends on how it's been abused, what is the genuinity of the case, and how big is the influencer. Because some customers are really big influencers, and that I'll tell you during the case study that I present now. Any other question?
So I have a question. Considering that automobiles had a real setback in the pandemic because people were more stationed at home, nobody was traveling anywhere. Cars really have not obviously had a very big setback in the pandemic. How do you think that the luxury car industry would recover from this, I would say 1.5 or 2 year hitch which they faced due to the coronavirus?
Yeah, at the face of it, it looks like a no-brainer where we would think that people have really lost their jobs and they would be more focused on necessities and not go for luxury. Yeah, but when you start looking at the data, it throws a completely different picture. Usually, a crisis creates the wealth divide more aggressively, which means the poor become poorer and the rich become richer. Yeah, that is the rule of a pandemic or a adversity.
True.
Yeah. So, so what happened in Indian households so our net savings typically per year is $1.9 trillion household savings. That is double to $3.8 trillion. Yeah. Why? So now people didn't go for holiday. Yeah. People didn't buy shoes. They didn't buy suits. They didn't buy anything that they usually would, which means they had a lot of money to spare. I'm sure all of us would agree that the typical expenditure of any household went down because we didn't step up. Yeah, there are no hotels, no dinners, no parties, nothing happening. And that, at the end of the day, we realize is a big component of expenses. So when you have these kind of expenses and then you start looking people dying left, right, and center everywhere, you start thinking, you get into the emotional trance of why am I doing all this? Where would it take me and what if something happens to me? And that's when all hell breaks loose and you start doing everything which you always wanted to do. And that's what is exactly happening with luxury today. Yeah, I was reading that report where Mercedes launched the GLS Maybach and 50 cars were sold in no time. Yeah, and if you look at the number of Lamborghinis are sold, number of cars are sold, I mean, they are not at record levels, but they are very, very encouraging. So I call adversities like a pressure on a sponge. Yeah? You keep pressing it, but the Newton's third law of motion will come into force, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It will bounce back equally. This is my take. This is what I would like to believe, and at least the global data says like that. For example, now Porsche last year's Porsche's volumes were down by only 3%. 3% is nothing in the size of issue that we faced. And I'm sure in the first quarter, they had the best ever first quarter in the history of Porsche, which means that 3% was covered. So which means there's absolutely no loss of volumes if you look at a 15-month average.
Wow, that's pretty encouraging to know that, this particular sector didn't receive that big of a hitback or a setback that, all the other sectors which we thought would never ever get a setback, like hospitality, travel, food, all of those things. That's really encouraging to know.
Absolutely. I mean, and some of the analysts that I hear these days, they're saying by September, October, November, whenever things get better, they say you will not get a flight to fly to your destination. You will not get a room in a hotel that you want to go.
Wow, that's amazing. That's pretty much a dream now, but yeah, it's very optimistic.
I don't know if you guys heard about this example of Gucci in China, in Beijing, or
yes.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that what happened, right? I mean, they were stock out on the first day in few hours. So the emotions is what drives this business is what is very evident.
Okay, yes, Aklima, you have a question, I believe.
Yes, so I'm gonna go.
Sure.
So student's perspective, as you said, that the luxury industry is not that like big, but yet so interesting in our country. But what about the pay scales in the country?
So
It's
luxury will always offer you better pay than a mass. Yeah. Simply because you also expect it to be in a certain way. Yeah. The way there is a cost attached. The way you would dress up, your shoes, your upkeep is also expensive. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you need to be dressed up like a customer would. I'll give an example. I had a very big dealer in Delhi. He used to always come. He wants to be worth easily 10, 12,000 crores. But he used to come in a 5 Series to a BMW dealership. He owned a dealership. And I say, why would you come in a 5 Series and not a 7 Series? And he would tell me, Pavan, the customer doesn't like the dealer to be driving a bigger car than him, right? So, so the point here is you need to be spending a bit more on your upkeep and how do you travel. You cannot dress well and travel in a bus or a train. You would have to take a personal travel, correct? To be more. So all of this is expensive at the end of the day. So you'll have to be paid more to deliver on the luxury good. At the end of the day, it gets compensated from the cost perspective. But again, it's demand and supply. The demand for luxury is very high, but the right quality manpower is missing in the country.
Is it just the quality or do you think it is good enough right now, like compared to the other parts of the world?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
I'm saying, is it just the quality of the manpower, or like, do you think it's good enough as compared to the other parts of the world, the pay scale?
So, see, pay scale can never be compared to other parts of the world because it works very differently. For example, if you go to other parts of the country, the variable is much higher than fixed. Yeah, in India, the fixed is higher than variable. Also, if you go abroad, the cost of living is very high. For example, if you go to say Europe and you are engaged in luxury, the rent there, or if you decide to buy a house, everything is in multiples. So I think the salaries can never.
But yet the sorry.
No, you go on.
No, my point was like, yet sorry. If you talk about the savings or returns, it's better there, right? Is why people prefer working abroad.
No, see, they usually go for quality of life. I mean, this is a completely different topic, but I'll spend some time here. If you go to Europe or US, the rate of taxation on income tax is roughly around say 45%. In some countries, goes up to 55%. Yeah? So if you want to be buried in that country, then it's a good choice because you're going to pay the government. The government will pay you back after you retire. Yeah, the quality of air, the quality of life is generally better. But at the end of the day, it's the choice that you make. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go home and do my dishes. I mean, that's what people do in Europe and US. No? I mean, at the end of the day, you go home in a nice train and a tube train and start washing your utensils and cleaning your floor. So that's exactly not what we do in India. I mean, on the flip side, you are constantly in traffic and you waste a lot of time. So every country that we know has pros and cons. It's about what would you like from it. Yeah. So you need to make a decision basis that.
So it'll be a good decision for us to stay or come back or work.
I'm sorry.
So you mean it's a good decision to stay back, work, or
No, I'm saying the decision is yours. Yeah.
if you don't mind.
I'm not I was for family reasons. I mean, I like India. I mean, I like to be in place where I know people. I like the easier way out. I don't like people there because one, um, I think Europe is slightly racist. Yeah, most countries outside India are slightly racist. Anywhere you go, yeah, you feel that, and I've experienced that. So I prefer to be in India also because I think India is at the cusp where things would rapidly move positive from here on. I mean, the kind of things that you hear, I really think it's better to be invested in India. But if there is a great opportunity outside where it really works for me, I wouldn't mind going for a few years and coming back from an experience point of view, not from a money point of view.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, Suraj, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. So would these brands like Mercedes, Audi, when coming to models like Audi A4, Mercedes C-Class, would be a luxury in upcoming 4 to 5 years? If the answer is no, then what should these brands do to retain that luxury?
So, see, Mercedes as an umbrella brand is luxury. Luxury. It's like suppose you go to a Louis Vuitton, okay? So you will get a card holder for maybe 20,000, correct? But that is still luxury, right? The same way in Mercedes, you have the lower rung of the entry level model, say at maybe say 35, 40 lakhs. But it is definitely luxury, because you call it luxury because at that price you have an option of getting a big car. But you choose to go with a brand, with a smaller brand, but different luxury. The quality of feel of leather is different, the engine feel differently, it looks differently. So it is definitely luxury. The mother brand is luxury.
Okay.
Yes, Farah.
Yeah. So I have a question which is on a bit lighter note. So I saw from your LinkedIn profile that you are very active in social activities, and you have also represented luxury companies, as you have been saying. Am I audible?
No, I
Am I
missed
breaking?
part of what you said.
You were break.
Yeah, I guess that. Yeah, so I just wanted to know that when we have such huge targets and such rich clientele to cater to, and situations get a little, crazy or a little bit challenging. So what do you think that, to keep the employees and everyone who is working at the organization, how important is it for social gatherings or activities, or how do you keep the environment of the office and of the infrastructure within at par to deal with certain things?
So Aman can actually answer that question better because Aman has worked with me. So what I would typically do is I would usually come out of my office, talk to people, crack a joke, pull somebody's leg and go back. So I would do that at least 4 or 5 times a day. And this is not planned. This is my personality. Most of us ate lunch together. Okay. Uh, Fridays we would typically order something and eat together. So basically, it's about spending time talking to each other, making everybody a part of the family. Then typically there would be a birthday. Everybody's birthday got celebrated in office. Farewells got celebrated. We had our moments where all of us from office went out on our own accord, stayed in a bungalow together, shared the night together, were dancing till morning. So these are the things that really bind you. Yeah? And see, work itself is very interesting. And the moment you start thinking that it's gotten stressful and I don't feel Monday blues and all, is the time to really search for a new job. Yeah, because for me, I mean, I've been working 7 days a week, at least mentally, not physically, and it's always there in my mind. It's never been out of me saying this is work and this is home, and I'll not think about it here. And this is it's all together. I mean, I'm thinking about home and work, work at home, and I've woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and started writing about what idea I got, and so I mean, I'm a bit like that. Not everybody needs to be that way, but simple communication, spending time together, transparency. For example, Aman would know everything about Porsche India. I mean, he knew every department what they did because once in a month we called it all hands, and everybody had to present what they did in that month and what will they do the next month. So basically, everybody knew everything. So that's how you belong to the organization. Yeah, little bit of social, little bit of information, and you have to believe you're not coming to office for picnic. You're coming there to work and it pays your bills. So there is that relationship and duty that you have to deliver. But it can be best done with transparency, fun, laugh, and everybody stood for each other. I mean, anybody needed help, there was a natural desire to help. I mean, that thing was there. So I think, Aman, do you want to talk about it? You can also
Sure.
say things about us, so that's fine.
Not really, sir. I mean, you said most of the things. I mean, what he said is really right. We were a really small team at Porsche India. I wouldn't say we were never called a team. In fact, we were called a family, a Porsche family, within the Volkswagen group. So,
But it's really possible. Even if it was a bigger team, within the teams, how do you really collaborate together, help each other? That's the key. It's important to have fun at work. That's only possible if you love your job.
Got it.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, Siddharth.
Sir,
Yes, Siddharth, call me Pavan, and I'd like to see your face.
okay, sir. My network is not stable,
Okay, fair enough, no problem.
sir, what according to you does the prerequisite is required in a fresher to apply to work with such brands like Tata or Ford, as we've worked with this many brands?
See, there is, to be completely fair, I got in through campus. I don't know how would I got in otherwise, but from Tata to Ford, it was reference. As in somebody was working there, he gave my resume, I cracked the interview, and I went in. So I think LinkedIn is a great source these days. Yeah, and uh, and the theory of probability is very important. Yeah? Which means that you need to keep trying. Yeah, I mean, more you try, the chances improve. But if you ask me, how do you definitely get through? There is no fixed rule. Depends on that day how somebody finds you relevant and picks you or doesn't pick you. But keep trying.
But sir, is there any specific skill on which one should focus on and upscale it before applying in such companies?
So what? So it's like marriage. You married?
No, sir.
So suppose you want to get married to a girl. What would you find out about the girl? Is that a fit? How is she? What are her expectations? What are my expectations? Is there a fit? And can we live together? A job is no different. Yeah. The point is, you don't want to get into a company where you would not be happy at the end of the day. It's not just the company wanting you, but also you wanting the company. It works both ways. So it's important to, first of all, somebody really taught me this, and I think it's a very important thing. First of all, analyze the books of the company and see how do they look to you? Are they profitable, not profitable? At least one or two products of the company should be in high demand. Yeah. Otherwise, if you get into the company which is really going down, then you would keep struggling just to keep things together. You not learn anything and not grow. So, so don't have these brands in mind before only. I mean, get your research, and then the second question: how do you upskill? Find out about their industry, find out about their products. Who would I like to hire? Who would you like to hire? Somebody who can make the business better, who would make your life easier, right? How is that possible? Suppose you want to get into sales. So ideally, do you have any prior experience? If not, then you really get into the junior most level. I mean, you start learning from scratch. So as a trainee maybe. But you should know about the industry, you should know about the product, you should know about what needs to be done. You've done any trainings before, and you need to be able to demonstrate in your probation period, at least the attitude to learn. That's important in my opinion.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Siddharth. Yes, Vibhuti?
Yeah. So my question was related to Indian luxury automobile market. So I wanted to know what is the frequency at which people buy in India luxury cars? Because if a person buys like once, then he won't buy the next car for like 4 or 5 years, right? And also, what is the percentage of people who are like not millionaires or like super rich buying the luxury car in India? Buying, yeah.
So the second data I don't have, honestly. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of numbers floating around, but it's very difficult. So on a number, see, close to the luxury segment is 40,000 cars. And it is said that 24,000 households in the country are buying these cars. Okay. And this number has not been breached for the longest time. Yeah, it ranges between 30,000 to 40,000. So a lot of this is repurchase. For example, you hear a guy saying, "यार मैंने Mercedes चला लिया, अब मैं BMW try करता हूँ, मैंने BMW चला लिया, मैं Audi try करता हूँ." You know? So they might not, and if they really like the brand, for example, Mercedes. Yeah, I've driven a C. I would like to drive an E. So this is the second category of customer. One says I'll try all the brands. Second says let me upgrade in the same brand. And the third category, this is the most brilliant category. He'll keep buying the replacement of the same model. For example, an S class. I know so many of them who bought a third S class and the fourth S class and the fifth S class. They'll die with their S class. These are third category of customers. So while the number of households are less, but These are the ones who are fueling your business, and that is why it is important to increase the size of the pie. So business can be improved in two ways. Okay, if you want, you can write it down. One, by increasing the width of your market, which means you go and reach the market where you're not selling already. Second, you increase the variety of your offering in the market. For example, you have a C class, you introduce a B class, and then you get an A class, which means you're trying to sell the same product to a larger audience of customer. One, or second way is to increase the market size. For example, you go to the markets of Hubli and you go to Lathur and everywhere, and you start picking 2 customers from there. Yeah. So these are the two ways to increase the market.
I'm very happy. So I think we've had a very nice and interactive session. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of it. And thank you so much, Pavan, for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure. And yes, we would like to conclude this session.